Let's tell the followers what to expect from this week's How to English TEFL pod.
Sure, Gav. This week we start with a little housekeeping.
We compare words with and without the prefix under.
Then we talk about me joining my students for a rather challenging task.
I share some sentences that I've heard this week from my students.
And I try asking you some What Would Gav Do's.
And our quiz of the week is some tricky Greek and Latin prefixes.
So come and enjoy Gav and M's How to English TEFL pod. Welcome everybody, this is How to English Teach and Learn with Gav and M.
It's a podcast about teaching and learning English as a foreign language.
All opinions stated are personal and references will be given when necessary. Hello Teacher Gav.
Hi Teacher M.
We are teachers.
We are both TEFL teachers and we are doing a podcast
about TEFL, which is teaching English as a foreign language.
And in this podcast series, we will be discussing some topics that may come up during our lessons.
Hot feedback, Gav. Remember that from CELTA? Hot feedback.
Is it hot if it was a couple of days ago?
Well, I guess you wrote it down when it happened, so that is hot feedback. I always write it down afterwards.
That's very true. I have been making notes during the last couple of weeks, and now I'm ready to share my ideas with you and the followers, Em.
I thought you were going to say you've been making notes in the lessons. I mean, have you been really focused on the pod so much so that you're writing things down as they come up, thinking that'll be good for the show?
Well, you do know that I make notes during the lessons, and I might take a couple of those sentences out and put them into a special document, which I am now glancing over. In fact, there were a couple of sentences which I might like to return to later.
Gav, I'm glad you've got something to talk about. Honestly, it's getting quite hard to remember everything after a full week of work and that immediate blur that you get at the end of a lesson where you've just had a mind wipe almost.
I know exactly what you mean.
Looking back, it's a few things that come to mind, but there's so much that happens. So much happens in one lesson.
And on so many different levels. You might be trying to focus on the topic while the student may make mistakes which you need to think, how am I going to fix that while you're talking to me?
Yeah, at the same time, you're trying to make sure everybody's paying attention to the right thing, what's coming up next. And then, thinking about what's good for the pod for Gav to talk about. It's a lot.
It is a lot, Em, but we're managing, we're coping, we're dealing with it. And looking at our numbers, we're okay.
We are, okay. Well, I've got a post-it note full of notes, so that's good. What have you got written down today?
I have to do a teeny-weeny bit of housekeeping first, Em.
Oh, I thought we'd be all right this week.
No, I have to say that clothes is one sound.
Huh.
I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Apparently that doesn't count as a syllable. You were quite right.
I'm biting my tongue. Not going to say I told you so.
Moving on.
I told you so. Yeah, moving on.
And then I think we got a little bit confused at one point talking about nouns or verbs and where the stress may occur.
We did? Maybe. It's not hard to get confused. In what way exactly?
I think it came from the activity where I was telling you about the mispronounced words, where the stress was in the wrong end of the word.
Like hotel?
Like hotel and decide and report.
But it's hotel and decide and report.
Yes, and you wondered whether it was because some are nouns or some are verbs. There is a bit of a pattern, and if you go online, you can learn all about it.
All right. Going to link something in the show notes?
I am, but just off the cuff, Em, where would you put the stress with your verbs? At the beginning, the first syllable, or on the second syllable?
In general, you're not talking about that list we just gave. The stress is usually on the second syllable?
According to pronuncian.com, two-syllable word stress, two-syllable verbs are usually stressed on the second syllable.
Which is what I thought. So decide is not an exception, actually. Decide is the rule.
It follows the rule exactly.
Report, to me at the end of the day, and I will decide how to progress.
I like those examples. They all fit the rule. Whereas 2-syllable nouns, adjectives and adverbs are usually stressed on the first syllable.
Okay, so I'm going to send a letter to you, and the letter will have a picture in it. So really, hotel is the one that's the weird one.
That's the one that's tripping people up.
Yes.
So that was our housekeeping, Em. And also, I think I might have mentioned that this week we ought to talk about under as a prefix.
Yeah.
Because last episode we talked about
Over. Let's get this underway, Gav.
this exercise.
In under 3 seconds.
Em, I've collected a few examples of words containing the prefix under. I thought we could talk about the differences between under and other prefixes which we might see together. Let me give you an example. Undercook and uncooked.
Under is not enough. Uncooked is raw.
They're very different, those two words, depending on the prefix under or un.
They are. So the raw diet requires uncooked food, whereas if you're in a restaurant and you order a steak, you don't want it undercooked if you asked for it well done.
Under suggests less than you need or require or expect.
Yeah, and un is not at all.
That's it, so you've got your raw food. How about underqualified or disqualified?
They're quite different, aren't they? Underqualified is, again, like undercooked, not enough. But disqualified is when you're removed or banned or prohibited from playing something because you did something wrong, perhaps, or you broke the rules.
The prefix dis is often used to mean not or the opposite of.
Yeah.
If you're disqualified, you're not allowed to play this sport, for example.
You're no longer qualified to play.
No longer allowed.
No longer allowed.
I like that. And underqualified being?
Not enough. You may have a qualification, but not the right one or not the right amount.
How about under-enthusiastic or over-enthusiastic?
Again, under-enthusiastic, not enough. Enthusiasm. Lackluster. Over-enthusiastic, too much. So it's the opposite.
More than or too much, exactly. Too much energy. Do you have any under or over-enthusiastic students, Em?
That is a good word to describe my students. Definitely some come to mind when I think of that.
Do you have both types in the same class?
Yes.
How do you balance that out?
It's a challenge, Gav, but if you listen to our last episode, you might find some tips.
Very good. How about underwrite or unwritten?
The first one's a legal thing, isn't it? When you need a document signed by a notary or something, it's underwritten.
You need to support something that costs money by promising to pay for something. It's like a kind of guarantee.
Yeah, like somebody is there to help and support and
Back up.
back up, yeah. And the other one was unwritten.
That's it.
Well, that's not written. There's nothing on the page. Nothing visible.
It's just not there.
Yeah. My life story is unwritten.
So far.
Maybe.
Let's compare underreport and misreport.
I've never heard of underreport. I guess it's not reported well enough. If a news story's not covered in enough detail, maybe there's some facts missing.
A bit like your steak?
Not enough, yeah. It's the same thing, not enough. And the other one was
Misreport.
misreport. That would be badly reported.
Incorrectly, falsely.
Yeah.
They're so different. So just changing the prefix is quite fascinating, Em.
It is. Under is a good one. It's a really useful one. This week, Gav, I've been doing some listening tasks. And you may be a bit like me. You've done some listening tasks that you know well, and you've got the answers already, and you don't even need to listen to it anymore because you just know all the answers. But this week I've been doing some different listening tasks, and I decided, as a kind of test, to listen without knowing the answers and without looking at the answer book. And I did the task with the students at the same time as them.
So the teacher became the student.
Yeah. I wanted to know what it was like to do that kind of listening task in real time. And some of these tasks have a lot of numbers in them that you've got to write down. Very complicated information. So I just thought maybe I would benefit from seeing what it's like from a student's point of view. And I tell you what, it was really, really hard.
Was it?
Yeah.
Just because it was a difficult topic?
It was a lot of information. It was about people's jobs and what their responsibilities were and what they liked and didn't like about their jobs. And that seemed like quite a simple thing. But
did you do a gist task the first time you listened to it and just gave the students a simple exercise to answer, maybe a couple of words they needed to find?
No, it wasn't like that. It was a more detailed task immediately because it was quite short and it seemed like quite straightforward information, as in if you'd meet someone at a party or a conference and you were just having that kind of chat and then somebody asked you, well, what were they saying? How would that be to actually try and remember what they said? And sometimes when I'm doing listening tasks, I think it's not necessary to listen twice, maybe because the students have already heard everything, or it may be just a bit boring to listen to it again. But I really didn't even ask in this situation. I just said, right, we're going to listen again because I didn't get all of what they said. So.
Well, I often do that in real life. I say, I'm sorry, could you just repeat all of that again because that was far too much information.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just good as a teacher sometimes to put yourself into the shoes of the students and do the task with them at the same time. And then you've got a more
genuine experience.
Exactly. You know where the difficulties were. You know which words were difficult to write down.
Because what was difficult for you is definitely going to be difficult for the students too.
Well, funnily enough, I think they were better at it than I was. Maybe because they've had a lot of practice. I'm not used to writing notes and listening to people talking at the same time.
What did you come away with, Em, after doing this exercise, after realising it was really quite challenging for you and the students, although the students were a bit better than you? What did you gain from this experience?
Again, the thing I say a lot, just give more time for tasks. And at the end of the recording, I usually say, right, okay, what's the answer to number 1? But you really need a bit of time just to finish writing your notes and think what it was about and remember it. That time that feels like ages to a teacher is actually really nothing for a student. It's a good pause between the task and the feedback. I think it's fine just to have a bit of silence there. And ask them, do they need to listen again or not? Because maybe they don't need to.
You definitely need to be sensitive to the students' needs and just check, make sure they're not still making notes, make sure they're not still thinking about their answers, because there's a lot to formulate.
Exactly. And sometimes if it's a very long recording, at the point where I would get perhaps a bit flustered, you can just stop it. I don't think there's any problem with that. And just ask, is this okay? Do we need to start again from the beginning?
Like in real life, and say to somebody, hold on a second, let me just check that I understood what you said.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes you want to do a long listening task to get the gist or an overall idea of what they're talking about. But on these detailed tasks that really require a lot of note-taking, it's a good skill, but it's one that I need to practice.
I also quite like going back through the language and just saying to the student, how did that person say that thing? And then I elicit the answer from my students. And you find that the student will paraphrase the sentence that they heard. But then hopefully you can have a look at the transcription and see how the original person said that sentence. And you can compare the language and think, okay, which is the most efficient use of English, or how is this style different from what your student maybe remembered?
It was very useful because exactly that. The student said that the thing the HR manager didn't like about their job was that sometimes employees are always late. But in the recording, it was habitually late. The student didn't know that word, but they understood the idea. So it was really interesting to see that and then to say, well, what about this word in the transcript? And obviously that then connects in the brain of it's the same thing.
That is very, very nice. This reminds me of a recording we did this week with my class, M, and the student, after the exercise, recalled the sentence, "We employ everybody in our store." It doesn't sound right, does it?
Well, technically it's right, I guess.
That's an enormous store. Surely we can't fit everybody in there.
It could also mean that there's no voluntary workers, that everyone who works there is actually officially employed.
Yeah, but I think, and going back to the transcription and listening again, we realised that the employer was saying, we employ anybody, meaning without skills, without training, with no qualifications.
Yeah, that's important.
That's so different, isn't it? Saying we employ all people or we employ people without training.
That's a really good way to describe the difference between every and any, Gav.
Em, I wrote down a few mistakes this week that my students made while they were speaking English. Would you like to analyse them with me?
Yes.
And they did make me chuckle, I must say.
But not to their faces.
In fact, I think we all laughed a little bit, but no, I tried to be very sensitive. Let me give you this first sentence. My student was describing her husband, and she told us about his favourite sports and activities, what he did in his free time. And we said, tell us a bit more. And she said, he is 6 foot high.
That's weird.
Why do you say weird, Em? Because I think some students would very easily say high when they're talking about somebody's height.
They do make that mistake, and I have taught this, and I'm trying to remember the difference. Tall is from the ground up, isn't it? From the ground level to the top. Thank you. And high is perhaps not connected to the ground. You could say that the shelf is up high.
It suggests that the husband is floating in the air.
Yes. That's quite funny.
Although we do mention that mountains might be quite high.
Yes, so what's the difference?
I say to my students, think about the width and the height. And if it's as wide or wider than the height, then probably we say it's very high. So this mountain is very high. As opposed to thinner, taller things like people, and then we say tall.
Oh, I didn't know that part. So it can connect to the ground if it's high. It's not that it's always disconnected. So I always get confused with the plane is high in the sky, but the mountain is high. You said it's just wider at the bottom than it is at the top.
But if you're sitting on top of the mountain or on a skyscraper, you could still say I'm very high.
Yeah.
So it's talking about your distance from the ground. So you're right, it's both of those.
Yes, you have to consider that as well, your connection to the ground. Give me another one, Gav.
My student was describing how he doesn't like to travel on trains. He said the train was smelling badly. And I was picturing Thomas the Tank Engine when his nose was all stuffed up because he had a cold.
So in that sentence, smell is a verb. You're saying that the way he smells.
The way he inhales through his nose is how Thomas is smelling.
Yes.
That's the issue.
So you're describing the action there.
That's it, with an adverb, badly.
But with the train smells bad has to be an adjective because you're describing the train.
You correctly corrected the sentence. You changed from an adverb to an adjective to describe the train, which is a noun.
So the smell part isn't important because it's not working as a noun or I don't even know what smell is in that sentence.
That's a verb.
The train smells bad?
But bad is describing the train, so we need an adjective.
So smell is still a verb, but you're not describing that verb, you're describing the train, so you need an adjective.
You're absolutely right.
You could also say the train has a bad smell, which follows the adjective before the noun rule. Actually, I've realised you can use it at the end as well.
Does the adjective precede the noun?
Usually, I think that's what we teach it as in lower level books, but maybe it is more flexible.
I'm going to give you another sentence, Em. Another error from my student. She said she was sitting on a train.
Yeah.
And the passenger next to her started to fall asleep. And her head was kind of swooning. Would that be the right word?
No. Is that what the student said?
No.
No. Am I correcting your English now?
Yeah, just help me with this one. Falling.
Yeah. Drooping,
leaning inadvertently towards my student's seat and the student herself. And she said that the other passenger put her hairs on her arm. That sounds kind of gross, doesn't it?
That sounds like she plucked a few hairs out and just sprinkled them over her arm, which it could happen, but unlikely.
It's a bit gross.
I think the problem here is hair is countable and uncountable, depending on what you're talking about.
Is it both?
It is. When you're talking about hair as a style or the colour of your hair or what kind of hair you have.
Maybe on your head or on your chin?
Yep. It's straight hair, it's brown hair, it's all uncountable hair. It's like hair as a unit.
Your hair looks great today.
Exactly. It's like hair is one thing, one solid mass.
But hairs?
Well, that's individual hairs. Like Homer Simpson has 3 hairs on his head. You can see them. 1, 2, 3. You can count them.
I know when cleaning the bathroom, I often have to pick up hairs.
Yes, Gav. So then it's individual. If you say a couple of her hairs fell into my coffee, that would be gross.
Especially if they were trimming their nose hair.
What did your student do when this other person was leaning and the hair fell on her?
She moved her arm.
Okay, just keep edging away.
Yeah, I think that's all you can do, really.
Good hard shove, I'd say.
This week my student said, in reference to having a very stressful week, when I get home, I feel myself happy.
I've heard this many, many times. I think in a lot of languages they use that pronoun, myself, but you don't need it in English. We just don't use it. We just say I feel happy or I feel good. And when I sleep a lot, I feel really well. We never need to say myself. Like if we say I don't feel myself, it sounds like I feel like a different person. I feel like I'm not me.
It could sound quite inappropriate, Em, if you said I feel myself happy.
Yes, that's also true.
And may find some curious looks.
You're being very indirect here, Gav. You might need to be a little bit more clear.
It sounds like self...
It sounds like you're giving yourself a massage. Is that what you mean?
That is exactly what I'm trying to say, Em. Thank you for making that clear. So what should we say? When I get home...
I feel good.
Yeah, I feel great. I feel more relaxed. I can sit down on the sofa, maybe switch on the TV and just chill for a bit.
Any more?
The student also mentioned that they go on holiday to walk on a beach.
Oh, bad pronunciation there. Yeah, and you don't want shits in the hotel.
No, exactly.
You want sheets. You want sheets and you want to walk on the beach.
That's very good.
I'd definitely stamp on that one. Look horrified. Don't know what you mean. That's a bad word. Make sure they don't make that mistake again.
I think they won't once they see that expression you have on your face, Em.
Which is fine, because a lesson is a safe space, so it's not a problem. But you need to make sure they get it right next time.
Last one. I make sport in the gym.
Yeah, I think the best way to do that is just to repeat over and over and over again, possibly infinitum for infinity, that we don't make sport in English.
We don't make sport. We make sandwiches. We make cakes. Don't make cakes in the gym.
No. Well, you can make a sport, but what kind of sport? Is it some kind of new thing that nobody's ever invented before? Some combination of badminton and snooker? It could be a nice idea and interesting, but most people don't make sports at the weekend.
No, we don't invent, we don't design, we don't create sports. We simply participate. Therefore, we...
do sport.
Do sports. You know I said that was the last one?
Yes.
There's one more.
I thought there might be.
She's the responsible person for this department.
Oh, so close.
So close.
So she's responsible for these tasks, but she's the person in charge of?
She's the head of?
Yeah, she's the head of.
Maybe this could be a translation problem as well, the responsible person, because to be honest, it sounds like everybody else is just messing around, just having fun.
Yeah.
But she is actually quite responsible. She'll do her job.
Yeah, it would be like if you're taking a class of children to the zoo, you need a responsible person so that they don't put their hands in the tiger cage and things like that.
That is true. You know I said that was the last one.
Yeah.
There is actually one more.
Really? Okay.
I'm looking for the TV every evening, my student said to me.
Where have you put it? Why do you keep hiding it from yourself? I think sometimes you've got to make a joke of it and make them realise how silly that
Well,
sounds.
where was it yesterday? Surely it's in the same place as it was yesterday.
Must be quite a small TV if you can't find it all the time.
So what should my students say, Em?
Looking at the... No, not even that. Watching. We watch the TV. Oh, dear. You have a lot of work to do, Gav.
I have. My job is never ending. Hey, follower. We hope you're enjoying the show. If you know anyone who might also enjoy listening to Gav and Em's How to English TEFL pod, share a link with them and they can enjoy it too. Thanks. Now back to the show.
Okay, what about this? Can I ask you a what would Gav do question?
Of course you can. It's been such a long time since your what would Gav do question, Em.
In a while. So early morning classes.
Oh no, don't talk to me about early mornings.
We know it's a struggle, especially on a Monday. You wake up, you've got to get yourself moving, make yourself breakfast. I'm teaching online, as I've said before. So some of my students don't have a camera. They've just got their initials on their screen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm aware of one student just yawning. Out of 4 students, I've got a student who is just yawning.
How can you be aware of somebody yawning? Surely you can't see them yawning because it's just a black screen.
I can hear them yawning.
Hear them? Is that you yawning?
That's me yawning, and it's very audible.
Is that what the student does?
Yes. So firstly, I'm not sure which one it is. That's my first question.
How many are there?
4.
So there are 4 in the class.
Yes, and one of them is yawning.
Does the window, which represents the student's space on your online teaching platform, does it light up with a blue square around it every time they yawn?
No.
Carry on.
No, that's all. That's it. What would you do in that situation? Someone's yawning audibly, getting a little bit frustrating and annoying because it seems to be every 3 minutes.
First of all, your student's tired, and there's not very much I could do about that. But I think this may be a case of, you know, when you sneeze or cough or make some sort of bodily sound online, it can be cut out by the program that you're using.
And you would trust that? You would think, oh, it's okay, they can't hear me. Maybe that's the reason. Whatever the reason, what would you do?
I would allow them to yawn a couple of times, and then on the third, I would shout, "Who's yawning?"
Just take that bull by the horns.
Yeah, and possibly go round the class and say, "Was it you yawning? Was it you yawning? Was it you yawning? Oh, it was you yawning. Now, why are you yawning?" And distracting all the other students.
Well, I said the first part of what you said. I didn't put them on the spot and say, "Why are you yawning?" I mean, that's personal. They might have had a terrible night of sleep.
Well, let's talk about it.
No, I think that's private.
All right, let's not talk about it.
I just said, do you need to get a coffee? And then the person was horrified that it was audible. So I think you're right.
There you go. So I might have been right that they thought it was cut out by the program.
I think you're right.
It was inaudible.
They thought it was inaudible.
Exactly.
Yes. So I think you're right there.
But it turned out it wasn't. It was very audible by everybody. Did you mention this to the other students?
They were there? What do you mean?
Did you ask them if they could also hear this yawning? Maybe it was only you that could hear it, Em.
I didn't need to, because when I said, "Who's yawning?" they all said, "Yes, who's yawning?" So I think they were getting a bit annoyed as well.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah, I think it's a bit like the elephant in the room after a while. You can't ignore these things. Like when somebody walks into the background when they have got their cameras on.
I always ignore the people in the background. It's so rude to mention that.
Or if a cat jumps on the desk.
If their cat wants to jump on the desk, it is none of your business. You should not be raising these things. These are very private, intimate moments.
Okay.
So it's okay to point out things if they are very distracting to the students, to the class, to whatever activity you're doing. I fully support you in that decision, Em.
Thanks, Gav. One more. What would Gav do, Gav?
Yep.
And that is, you've had your 90-minute lesson. You're wrapping up.
If I've had a 90-minute lesson, I have already wrapped up and I have pressed the stop the lesson, or I've told the students to get out of my classroom.
You've had an 88-minute lesson so
2 minutes
far.
left?
Got
okay.
2 minutes
so
left.
I'm at the very, very end of saying, "Oh, Em, shall I just tell you something new that I'm doing?"
Huh?
What I've started doing right at the end of the lesson is saying to the students, "What are you looking forward to?"
Yeah.
And we go around really quickly. So how many minutes did you say?
2.
2 minutes left. I would be on the last student, probably the last part of their sentence. But
Okay,
yeah, go on.
that is a great example. So you've said that. What are you looking forward to? Everyone's given a 30-second, I'm going to make a coffee, I'm going to have lunch, I'm going to the gym later. And then the one student that's the very last question launches into this monologue of things they're going to do at the weekend, all these plans. You see the time ticking. You've gone past the end of the lesson.
Oh,
You're
no.
into 2 minutes beyond the end of the lesson.
Oh, goodness.
What do? They're not stopping, and they look like they have no intention of stopping.
I might put my hand up.
Right.
It does work very well.
Okay.
Let's just try it now.
I wasn't talking, but I can see your hands up. Yeah. I don't know if it works if you say beforehand. Beforehand.
I've got all your attention now.
Yes, I'll have to try that. I just kind of looked very desperate and said, I think we're out of time, but I really want to know all of this, so can we carry on next time?
That is exactly what I would say. I really am so interested in what you've just started saying, but I have to jump to my next class or we all need to get back to work.
Yeah, that's it. You've got a lot of people. I mean, some of them had already left, but yeah, you've got to make sure you keep to the time.
That's right. You've got to stick to your schedule because you might have another class just waiting for you.
You mean it might actually be true that you've got another class that you've got to jump to?
Do you know how many times I've had to say to my next class, I'm really sorry, but that previous student really wanted to talk to me about their Labrador.
Well, I don't know if it's okay. I think you've got to just cut them off and say stop because I've got another lesson, and that's not fair if you're late to the next one. But a lot of people have got meetings and you can see the other students looking really uncomfortable. Like, you've got to stop this because we've got to go or we've literally got to hang up, and that's a bit rude.
Yeah, well, that's why my hand signalling does generally work.
Okay, I'm going to try that, and if that doesn't work, I'll wave, and if that doesn't work, I'll just end the meeting and say, I think we had technical problems at the end of that, sorry.
Or just simply say, great, wave and say bye-bye and hang up.
Sure.
Unless you've got anything else you want to share with me and find out what Would Gav Do, it must be time for Quiz of the Week.
No, I don't have anything else. Thank you for asking in a really weird way.
Well, as we have covered a few prefixes over the last couple of episodes, and today, do you remember what our prefix was especially that we focused on today?
Under, Gav.
It was
not under you, but under.
It was.
What is under you?
The carpet.
Aha.
Therefore, I've got a quiz of the week which relates perfectly to prefixes.
I'm ready.
Now, I've been ever so gentle with you this weekend because I've got simply 4 questions.
Oh, I like it.
I know you like it, and I hope the followers also like it as well. Do you think they're ready with their pens and paper, Em?
I'm sure they are.
All right, followers of them. So, as we all know, English is made of up to 30% of Greek and Latin.
We do know, yes, of course.
Our mini quiz on Greek prefixes is going to be highly appreciated by all.
Right.
Let me break it down for you, Em. As I mentioned, there are 4 questions, and if you'd like to, I can give you the multiple choice answers, A, B, C, or D, and you can give me your answer.
Right.
Shall we begin?
Yeah.
An autoimmune disease is a disease which originates... Would you like the multiple choice first? A, from a chemical or poison taken into the body. B, from a virus inhaled from the air outside. C, from the body's own immune system. Or D, from a bacteria that one gets by being around an infected person.
I think it's C, isn't it? It's when your body starts to attack itself.
You are quite right. That is the correct answer, from the body's own immune system. Now, as you know, auto is the prefix here. How would you use auto?
Self?
It does mean self, same, or spontaneous.
Yeah, like autodidactic, I think it means self-taught.
Or learning without formal training.
Yeah.
Quite right.
Yeah.
Well done, Em. That is your first point, 1 of 4.
These are hard.
I know, that's why there's only 4 of them.
That's enough.
Number 2. Ms. Richards wants all of her golf gear monogrammed. What should you engrave or paint on her equipment?
I think I know this one without the options, but do you want to give me the options anyway?
I'm very happy to get the answer first, Em. Do you want to go ahead?
I think it's her initials.
It is her initials, which was answer D.
So mono would be singular? I don't know. What is monogram in that situation? One letter.
The prefix mono suggests one, singular, or alone.
Often monograms are 2 letters, so I guess it's just 1 letter for each name.
I think you are right.
So like Monopoly, it's 1 power, isn't it?
Monopoly. Sorry.
Is that how you say it? Okay.
Question 3M. Mrs. Medina is very strict with her subordinates. She watches everything they do and pays close attention to every detail. Her leadership can be called...
I would say strict, but give me the options.
Option A, anti-management, B, micromanagement, C, macromanagement, or D, monomanagement.
And what was it? She was strict with her subordinates. I don't know. I've only heard of micromanagement. I guess there might be a macromanagement as well, but if she's going around each individual employee and giving them personal advice, I'd say micromanagement.
I think you're quite right there, and that is the correct answer. Congratulations. B,
Phew.
micromanagement. Mrs. Medina's behaviour of closely monitorising and scrutinising her subordinates' actions and paying attention to every detail aligns with the concept of micromanagement. Micromanagement refers to a leadership style where a manager excessively controls and oversees the work of their employees, often undermining their autonomy and decision making.
Oh, that sounds like a negative thing. We talk about micro-teaching, and I don't think it's the same thing. I think it's just giving more attention to certain things that each student needs.
So what does micro suggest?
Small.
Yes,
Tailored.
that's it.
Yeah.
So we're micromanaging, which I think can be positive as well.
I think so. I'm sure Mrs. Medina means well.
You try telling her employees that, Em.
Well, yeah. You'd have to get a survey, wouldn't you? To know.
Because according to Google, micromanagement is pretty negative, Em.
Right. Well, I don't know it in that context. So micro-teaching, I hope, is always okay.
I hope so.
What's our last question?
Question 4. There was chaos everywhere. Along the main street, looters came in and out of shops. They took everything that they could and burned all the rest. It was as if everyone let the evil in themselves loose. It was utter...
Choices, please?
Utter choices, please?
No, give me the choices, please.
Option A, autodemonium. B.
Okay, I think I know. Can I? I think it's pandemonium.
Pandemonium. Option D. Em, you are absolutely right. Well done.
What were the other options? Autoimmonium.
I'm glad you stopped me there because I couldn't pronounce the other two.
I'll try.
Nodemonium, antidemonium, or pandemonium.
Right. Panda. I didn't think it... Pando?
I don't think it's panda, as in the animal.
Pandas everywhere. So panda. No. So pando. Pando is the prefix.
Panda. The word pandemonium, the word pandemonium accurately captures the sense of disorder, confusion, and uproar that is present.
How do you spell the prefix?
Pan, P-A-N.
Just pan.
Yeah.
So there's ammonium. There's a modi. Pan means what exactly? I never knew it was a prefix in that word.
Apparently it is. Pan, as in...
Pancake. I can't think of any other words with pan that use it as a prefix.
Panacea, pandemic.
Yes.
Panorama.
Okay.
Pancreas?
That means all? Is it something like everything?
Em, you are absolutely right. The prefix pan, P-A-N, refers to all, everything, involving everyone. The word pandemonium, meaning evil spirits, was invented in 1667 by John Milton. I think you know where this was first created, Em.
Paradise Lost?
It is from the poem Paradise Lost.
I've read some excerpts and it's lovely.
It features some quite wonderful words, including the prefix from the Greek/Latin language pandemonium.
Good to know. I love that word. It's great.
Well done, Em. You got full marks. I wonder if the followers were also able to get full marks and even keep up with this conversation, because it's been pretty involved.
I like it. We're getting into the
weeds.
Yeah. Is that everything, Gav?
I think we have covered plenty in this episode. I hope you're taking something home with you. Some What Would Gav Do's, some prefixes. You may be under or from last week over something.
Yeah, I'm overjoyed to be talking to you again.
And not underwhelmed by this episode.
That's right.
Catch you next time.
Bye for now.